Sarah, welcome back to House Church.
Fancy meeting you here.
We're back here in the same spot.
The same spot.
In your home.
In my home.
Slight differences. I wonder if people can catch the differences.
Yeah.
Do you think
like
they
those
can?
There's like those books. It's like spot the difference.
Spot the difference. I feel like I'm wearing almost the same stuff, maybe. I feel like I was wearing a black shirt.
You didn't do a new color today?
No.
I don't think I've ever seen you in either black or white. Only black and white. Do you have other colors you wear?
I do. I have one green shirt.
Okay.
I have one yellow shirt.
Oh, wow. I think I would notice the yellow shirt.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know that I have a yellow shirt that I bring out, but
Yellow is not your color?
it's not my color.
Really? What are your colors? Blue?
Yeah, I wouldn't go for blue. I'm kidding. Yeah, blue. Red. I've been
Okay.
wearing red. I don't know. It changes with the seasons.
Okay.
I feel like it's summer, so we got to bring out the beautiful light colors.
Do you feel like the color you're wearing indicates your state of mind? That's
Oh,
our
my
house church
word.
discussion today.
Yeah, it's everyone. That is along with what animal would you like to be, right?
Okay, let's attach that to. Let's start with the color of clothing.
Color of clothing.
Does that communicate your state of mind? Because for me, if I'm wearing all black,
Yeah.
it means number one, I'm really comfortable. Like I feel really comfortable in my skin. Number two, it also means I'm here to work. I'm here to accomplish something. Like I'm
Interesting.
focused.
So that's the black for you.
That's the all black for me.
Wow.
I'm like, if I wear color,
Yeah.
that's me going, man, I'm feeling really good about myself today.
Love it.
I'm gonna allow a little splash of color. I'm
Okay.
gonna let loose a little bit today.
Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna be a little more casual, a little more loose.
I like this. You know what? I'm identifying though, because when
Okay.
you're saying that, I'm like, oh yeah. So red for me is more like power. I put on red. I'm like, I'm in my power. Just like I'm powerful. Yeah. Whereas like to me, I feel like blue is more soft.
Ah, okay.
In my power, but in a softer way. Yeah. There is something
There
to
is
it, I
something
think.
to it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should send people into the house church groups, analyze what everybody's wearing, make some observations about their state of mind.
What
And they-
state of mind? Yeah.
Let's dive into today's discussion. Messy Church, Part 2. We're dragging out this topic, Messy Church.
Yeah.
This is our third week tackling Messy Church.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, you and I had a conversation. And then last week, we continued that conversation
Yeah.
in Winkler. So I actually invited Dave up, and him and I had a discussion where we unpacked some of the points his house church discussed in their group. Dave is a very thoughtful person. And so when he explains something, I feel like I'm reading or I'm hearing like a well written out essay. It's like nice 3 points, and it kind of leads you through that journey. It was really good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we sent people into some groups to discuss some questions around Messy Church.
Yeah.
Great discussion.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to continue Messy Church, but with a slightly different twist.
Yeah. Twisty twist. Here
Twisty
we go.
We're switching roles.
Switching roles.
Switching roles.
Let me know when we're switching roles.
We're switching roles right now. Here's what's going to happen is I'm going to take off a hat.
Okay.
It's an invisible hat, but you can see it. I'm going to pass it on to you. Here's the hat.
Thank you. I thought we were switching chairs.
That's probably what we
No.
should have done. Oh, wait, I can't put it back on. Sorry. You didn't
I
take
got
it.
it. I already put it
Oh,
on.
you put it on?
Yeah.
Okay, that was like a phantom. So you have the hat of asking questions, the host, the facilitator, and I will be whatever the opposite of that is.
Yeah. Because we were talking when we first had met and talking about this whole intimacy thing, right? And just like vulnerability and intimacy and sharing. And I think that it's so, I mean, immediately to me, it's like, well, tell me about I want to hear about you. I want to hear, when we have people that we look up to or respect or leadership, it's like, all right, so if we're evening the playing field and we're all sharing and we're all trying to create a culture of intimacy and
Right.
sharing our mess, then we want to all practice what we're saying, right? And so I think it's really awesome that you're willing to share now too. And you have been on this journey, right? I think, was it 2 weeks ago when we were talking, you're like, this has been a stretch and a challenge for you. This whole series has been, correct?
Big time.
Yeah.
Like it stretched me in more ways than I anticipated. I knew it would stretch me,
Yeah.
but it's like, yeah, it's painful.
The uncomfortable
It's
zone.
uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
I think what I'd, shared with you when we met was I am aware of what comes natural to me. And I really enjoy asking questions and getting other people to share.
Yeah.
What doesn't come as naturally is being transparent myself
Yeah.
about things that I'm walking through right now. Or sometimes even things that I've walked through in the past. It maybe ties into what I shared last time about how I need to see purpose in a mess,
Yeah.
not just beauty.
Yeah. And I think that it's just so good for just hearing those points as, the pastor from in 2019 when New City began, right? And you were, leading and pushing and pulling together and all these things, meanwhile you're walking a journey. So maybe share, if you're ready to go, like share a little bit of, kind of all of that and
Yeah.
what was going on at that time.
Yeah. I think in 2020, it was probably early 2020, I think something happened there. I went through a mess that I think forever changed me and shaped me and made me appreciate the value of creating space for mess. I think that's something that ever since then I've really held on to. Like, this is important. People need to feel like they can bring their mess here. But that was a byproduct of my own experience with my mess. And so I think that's why it's helpful to share about that moment. It's like the things I value today came from that. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
I think even the desire to have this conversation as a part of a series is very much rooted in personal experience. So in 2020, I was a part of a very toxic relationship. It was the kind of mess that I'd heard others, find themselves in. It was a kind of mess that I never thought I would be in myself. It was like, this happens to other people. This doesn't happen to Wamba. And so when I found myself in this highly toxic relationship, and it was slowly just like digressing. Like every day was just like downhill, and the slope started to get steeper and steeper, right? Until I got to a place where I felt like I didn't even recognize who I was. I was like, who have I become? I have generally, like, I've had seasons where I struggle with confidence and then times where I'm good. But overall, I felt like confidence has been like a thing that's been present in my life. And I felt like all of my confidence was just like being robbed away, and I was left with no confidence at all. And the situation got so bad internally, but I was not voicing this necessarily with people around me. I think I'd maybe, one or two friends, really just one friend that I kind of voiced a few things to and would kind of bring them in on things, but I never revealed the full picture. And I never really shared how bad things were, how severe things were. And there was one particular moment that scared the crap out of me. I found myself, in a really bad situation, and I was just sitting on the side of the street. This is like way after midnight, and thinking to myself, this can't get any worse. I was worried that the situation I was in was actually going to have severe consequences on my life. Like,
Wow.
I wasn't diligent with enforcing boundaries that would be healthy for me. And so I had created this thing where it's just like, no, you can cross that line, you can cross that line. Eventually, I just felt completely damaged. And so as I was sitting on the side of the street, this one particular moment, I think I cracked. I think I realized this mess is too big for me to handle. And I think that's one of the first evenings I reached out to a friend,
Wow.
a close friend, and said, listen, man, I need to talk. And we went for a few hours of a walk, and just like, I just unloaded. It was like, can I say anything? And I started with that. That was the prelude, is, can I say anything? I'm just gonna like spill it all out.
Right.
I'm going to let my anger all out. I'm just going to like let everything come out. And for a few hours, we just walked, and I just like voiced everything that had been happening, how I was feeling, how it was affecting me. And that was the start of being more transparent with my mess. But this was at the same time that I was also part of New City. This was the early stages of New City. We had just launched in 2019, the fall of 2019. And this was kind of all going down in early 2020. And so, we talked about how we sometimes put on this mask.
Yep.
I found it difficult to navigate between being a part of this new church,
Yeah.
building community, leading, and then also navigating this internal mess that's eating me on the inside and destroying who I think I am.
Wow. Did you feel like, where do you think, I guess, as we're talking about this whole, like, I felt like bringing my mess into the church, that was something where I was like, when I'm messy, I can't bring that in. Did you feel that, or was it more that you were in a place of authority, or not authority, I shouldn't say, but like leadership in the church? So you felt like, was it more that piece where you felt like you couldn't, or the pressure of that? Like, where were your thoughts on all that?
It's a good question. I think there's two parts to that. There's how I thought then, and there's how I think now. Because, this is years ago, well, not too many years ago. It's like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But like over the process of finally deciding to like go for therapy, I've done a lot of verbal processing, which has been helpful. And so what I was thinking then was, if people were to find out this is what's happening with me, they're going to think different of me. I'm not sure how much of that was connected to like being in a position of leadership and how much of that is just like my natural tendency.
Right.
I think I would feel that way regardless of whether I'm in leadership or not. But I do recognize now that there was a certain level of protecting not just myself, but in some ways I felt like I was protecting others from my mess by not sharing it.
Interesting.
I see now,
Yeah.
after some processing and discovery, that like, well, that's not how you approach that. But I think that's what I was thinking then.
Yeah. And I think that's good to voice, because how many people still feel that? We still struggle in that. Like, I need to put my whatever I'm dealing with, if we're in a place of leadership in any area of our life. Like, it doesn't have to be a leader in a church. If we talk about what are areas of leadership, well, as parents, or in the workplace, or right, all these places where have we decided that if we make room for others' mess, ours has to get pushed? Where did we decide that there's not room
For both.
Right? I feel like for me in my journey too, it was like I came to a place of I no longer trusted myself.
Oh,
so it was
big time.
like did you feel that?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's the whole confidence piece gone, is like, how did I get here? How did I allow myself to get here? What are the choices I made? Does that put into question all the other choices I'm making outside of this? Yeah.
Right. How did you find that you were able to then climb out? Like that was the start, but what was it like, okay, I need therapy? Was it that like what brought you out? And did you bring anyone at that point in the church into that at all? Or was it your own journey of healing and then you finally were able to share more?
Right. It initially was bringing some of my close friends. Yeah, some were like in my particular church community.
Right.
But even outside of that, close friends that I've developed over time, bring them into the situation. And then it was going to therapy. I think this was the first time I decided to go for therapy. I never really considered it before, but I was desperate for anything to help. I mean, I think that's when I've always believed therapy is good.
Yeah.
But that's when I got firsthand experience of why it's good.
Yeah. You got the taste of it.
Yeah.
Wow. It feels like you, whether it's the congregation, because I would have felt like I can't bring my mess to church, but meanwhile, the pastors or the leaders are also feeling like I can't bring mine. It's like,
Nobody wants to.
What are we doing? Like, where does the mess go, right?
Yeah.
How have we come to this? We're breaking that now, but it feels like we all have these beliefs surrounding it. Would you say it's like?
I think oftentimes when something's present in a community or culture, and I think in this case, we're speaking to more than just like a specific, like not just New City cultural community, just like church cultural community in general. I think sometimes we forget how much that's embedded into all of us. Right? So I think somehow we think that if there's a culture of something in the space, that others are immune from being affected by it. When I think in reality, like you're saying, it's like everyone is feeling that way. That's why that's a part of your culture.
Right.
And I think it's because we don't call it out. I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do with this series is call it out.
Yeah. But I wonder if it's not even just in the church culture. It's just like there's this level that we put on of this facade in general. Like, do we put a mask on at work?
Yeah.
Do we put a mask on with our kids? Do we put a mask on when we go to soccer with all the other moms? Like, do we put masks on it? I would say, right? It's not just...
Yeah, it's just human nature. I think it's so, I mean, if you go back even to, like, as you were speaking there, what came to mind was, what did Adam and Eve do, right? After that initial sin is they covered up themselves.
Right.
They were ashamed and covered up themselves. And then God comes around and says, what happened here? And Adam's not forthright right away. They were hiding. So I think you're right. It is human nature to be like, I'm ashamed of my mess.
Yeah.
So I will cover myself up with this mask and retreat and hide.
Yeah.
Irregardless of whether it's church, it's just human nature or whichever space you're in.
So I wonder, because we're trying to create this culture, right? We are creating it.
Yeah.
I wonder if there will be those times when it's like, it's going to require practice if you've never done it before. And to understand that there will be those times when it's like, I really don't want to, but I know that bringing this to the light and bringing people in is the right thing. And it's not necessarily going to feel amazing the first times you're practicing intimacy or vulnerability, right? But over time, as you said.
Yeah. It takes some, like, you make some mistakes. You're like, shoot, I think I shared too much there.
Yeah.
And then the other end of it where you're like, wait, I trust that person. Why didn't I share more with them?
Right.
I think you make some mistakes on both ends and you like slowly figure out, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is how to approach it. I have a question that I'm still processing. I'd be curious on your thoughts on it. If I'm allowed to ask a question. I took off the hat, but can I ask questions still?
Yes. Wamba, let's go.
Okay. Mess exhaustion. That's a thing that I struggle with, where I'm like, I'm extremely tired of my own mess.
Right.
kind of exasperated. And then I just assume, or what goes through my mind
Right.
is everybody else is too. So I think that's one of the reasons why I sometimes would shy away from sharing is I'm like, people are just going to be sick and tired of this again, new mess, right? It's like you work through one mess and it's like, oh, here's another one. Here's another one. And I'm so sick and tired of it. Is that a thing? Mess exhaustion?
100%.
Okay.
But I feel like we're never going to escape that because we are existing in this world where there is sin. And so
Right.
we will never be without mess until we get to heaven.
See, that sounds exhausting when you say it
does,
to me.
I
And
know, it
like my brain is like, oh no.
But I think, how do we then extend grace to ourselves and not be in that place of like, oh, nobody's going to, I mean, I think there is a place where if all I am doing when you walk in the door is like,
Mess.
yeah, then there's maybe a mindset shift that has to happen. Because
Yeah.
if you cannot pull out anything in gratitude in your life and all you
Yeah.
want to do is go negative, that's not the culture we're trying to create.
That's not healthy.
Right? That is not.
Yeah.
Though on that note, there's times when you can't see any light or any good and you need those people to walk alongside you.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully that's not 10 years worth of you can never, I would pray for anyone that
Yeah.
they're able to come out of it. But the exhaustion, I hear you. I hear you.
It's a real thing.
But I wanted to ask you too, like, do you feel like, or did you feel like in that period of time that being messy would have disqualified you from leading? Like, did you feel that there was this pressure of that? Or was it just, if I keep this separate, I could still do this? What did you feel with that?
Oh, that's such a layered question. I'll tell you what I do know. There's a lot of things I don't know. Okay, so what I do know is, for example, at that time, the person that would have been, I was part of helping with leading the launch, but Pastor Tony would have been really at the front with that, kind of in that main lead pastor role. And at the time, he was the most supportive person in my life. So as far as like what I felt from the people around me that I'm leading with, I felt like there was, like I didn't feel a pressure from him
Yeah.
or leadership.
Right.
They're like, better have it all together, otherwise you can't lead here anymore. So in that sense, I felt like, okay, there's no pressure there. That's one layer. Then there's maybe a different layer where it's like maybe the people that I'm walking with. Did I feel pressure there? I felt pressure there that I created in my mind. I don't think anybody else created it.
Right.
So it's just a pressure from myself. And I think even today, I'm learning to let go of that pressure. But I still find myself thinking thoughts
Yeah.
and applying pressure on myself that nobody else. Sometimes it's just talking to others and going, listen, I feel this way. And they're like, nope, no pressure from us.
Right.
And you're like, oh, it's just me
Yeah.
the entire time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that point of
Yeah.
actually just voicing almost the question mark in your head. Like, wait, is there pressure? Did I make? Oh, I made it up. Okay.
It was just me.
I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. Well, I think
Yeah.
that leads us to a good question, maybe that we can get everyone in the homes to talk about.
Okay.
Is almost like, is there certain places or environments that we avoid intimacy
Yeah.
or avoid showing our messes?
I like it. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, coming back. We are going to get into a topic. I said I'm having a bit of a nervous laugh about this one.
Why are you nervous about it?
Because this is where I feel like, even for me, though I push for intimacy and vulnerability,
Yeah.
this what we're going to talk about, I should just build it up and not say.
Big build up.
It
I like it.
really is. It can be very touchy and it can tread on people's emotions. And so getting into messy topics and how do you navigate messy topics when all of you may have different opinions on everything. But if we're trying to create a culture
Yeah.
of mess and being open and intimate and vulnerable,
Yeah.
then can we shy away from going here?
The way I look at it is this. Here's the problem, right? Here's the dilemma. Humans are messy. Life is messy. The world is messy. The church is in the world, right? If you want to get real scriptural, we can go, in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah.
But we're human beings in the world. So we're surrounded by mess. We create the mess. We are mess.
Right.
So should we be having conversations in church about messy topics? Or should we pretend like the church is a space where messy topics aren't relevant? And I think when we pretend like they're not relevant, we leave it to spaces outside of the church to define what it looks like to tackle those topics. I really think it should be the opposite. I think we should be the ones leading the conversations on messy topics. I think if something's messy, we shouldn't wait for others to start that conversation. I think we should pull it in and go, all right, we're going to start this conversation.
Right.
We're going to figure out what this looks like biblically. We're going to figure out how to do this in love. We're going to figure out how to disagree
Yes.
and love one another. Like we're going to lead that.
Yeah. If we truly come from a place of we're going to do this with honor and love and respect and then we should be able to disagree without losing honor towards each other, right? Like there should be, what would you say about that? Like having like those some things that we can root onto while we have discussion.
Yeah. If the goal and focus is to be the ones leading the conversation in the mess, then I think, we go to 1 Corinthians, love. If you have everything else but you don't have love, you're pretty much useless.
Yeah.
Right? Like we could go to that passage like, okay, 1 Corinthians 13, if I could speak all the languages of earth and of angels, but didn't love others, I would only be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I had the gift of prophecy and I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had such faith that I could move mountains, but didn't love others, I would be nothing. If I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it. But if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. So it's like you could have all the right knowledge, the right arguments, the right research, the right data, the right logical thinking. You could have all your supportive arguments. And at the end of the day, if you don't have love, it's really just a waste of time voicing everything you're saying.
If we truly can root in what is love, then it shouldn't be like, oh, we can't talk about that topic. It's like, why not? If we're rooted in love, there shouldn't be division. It should be, I can fully disagree with you and love you and honor you just the same. I will treat you no differently, but I still will disagree with you.
Yeah. I think that's where we want to be. I think that's where we are headed towards.
Yeah.
That's where we want to go. And I think if there's a mutual understanding in a community that, hey, I'm going to do my best to act from a place of love.
Yeah.
And if what you feel from me feels like it's not coming from a place of love, I want a space where people can voice that and where I'm humble enough to recognize it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can approach that in a more loving way. And if we're both thinking that way, if we're all thinking that way, I think that's how you get a loving community that might have different opinions and different thoughts.
Totally.
But still loves each other because you're like, I'm humble enough to recognize I can approach this in a more loving way. I would agree with you. That's something I want to work on more.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's the righteous anger, right? But we could go into that whole topic too.
Sure. What I heard someone say that was helpful for me with that was, I trust Jesus to execute righteous anger well.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't trust humans necessarily to.
Exactly.
I think if there's going to be righteous anger, you have to be very careful
Exactly.
to lead with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like Jesus can be trusted with it, but me?
Exactly. What judgments, what views have we brought into that?
Yeah.
I agree.
Is
I like
it righteous
that.
anger or is it purely just?
Yeah, I do like that.
Okay, love, grace. Grace is another one, right? I think giving people grace to understand we're all learning, we're all growing.
Yeah.
We don't have it all figured out. Let's go to the third one, truth. I think love is key, grace is key, truth is key. How do you navigate
Truth.
approaching a messy topic
Yeah.
where there's a difference of opinions,
Right.
but you want to lead with love, grace, but also truth? You have to be grounded in something. Because if it's just you think what you think and I'm going to think what I think, you can only get so far with that until you actually have to have a mutual understanding of how you move forward, either in a relationship or a community with this messy topic. And you have to have something that grounds you, and truth is the only thing that can ground you.
Right. Yeah.
Because if there's a possibility I might be wrong,
Yeah.
and if there's a possibility you might be wrong, something has to be right.
Right.
So there has to be a truth.
Has to be a truth. Right. Yeah.
'Cause-
Because it's such that's a huge hot topic, right?
Yeah.
It is whatever truth
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
That is so against that is it that it just doesn't actually that doesn't make sense.
Like,
What is the
create your
definition
own
of what is
truth.
true? Like that goes against the actual definition of what is truth. That's a rooted, unwavering. So if I can have a separate truth, that's wavering. That doesn't even it. So how do we make sure that we're rooted? Because then it's just it does actually boggle my mind a bit because we can all interpret
Yeah.
the scriptures even differently.
Yes. So how do you interpret scripture and find out what the truth is?
Yeah, I would like someone to answer that one for me.
I've got some thoughts.
Okay, give me some thoughts on that one.
So I think one is like, and let's go into it. I think what's helpful when you're reading scripture and unpacking truth is to do one thing, is to recognize what your worldview is to recognize I was born here, experienced this, experienced that, and because I live in this place and hang out with this demographic of people, I'm going to think a certain way. It's not a bad thing. Just recognize this
your
is my
worldview.
worldview.
Right.
So recognize I might read that into this. If I can recognize as a possible worldview, then I'm cautious in how I interpret this. It's like a rail that keeps me in check. That'd be one thing. And then the second thing I think that is helpful is understand the spirit of the text. Bernie was talking about this on Sunday. He says, if you look at just the letter of the text and the exact wording, then you start to quote all kind of things out of here to support all kind of wild, destructive arguments.
Yeah.
But if you look at the spirit behind it and the posture of what's been said here, the way Bernie put it, he says he reads in between the lines. Like, what is this text saying? What's the spirit of it? The way I would put that is, what's the posture? And then the third thing I would add is, how does this point towards Jesus? So I think that's, for me, the best way to figure out whether it's truth is Jesus lived this life.
Right.
If I take this text and passage and ask myself, how does Jesus view this? What's his posture with this passage and with the values that I think this passage is communicating? What's the posture based on the context? So, for example, if I'm reading 1 Corinthians 13, like we read, and it says, love is the greatest thing you could possess. Well, who was Paul writing to? We can even look into why he was writing this. What was happening with the church at the time? Why did he mention specifically prophecy? Why did he mention specific tongues? And you see here that the church is just starting off and they're practicing all these gifts that they're experiencing through the Holy Spirit. And so they're actually people that are getting so obsessed with the gifts that they're not actually loving each other. So he's actually addressing them and going, hey, as you operate, I know you value these gifts, prophecy and speaking in tongues and wisdom and knowledge, But if you lose sight of love, you're not actually following the way of Jesus.
Okay.
So his posture here isn't to say everything goes. His posture is, no, 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 no. Love first, and all of this comes after that. He's actually just reminding them of what really matters.
Right.
That's what I think of when I use the word posture.
Okay.
Because if I take this out of context and don't look at the posture, then I think what I can say based on this passage is it doesn't matter, just love people. And that's not what Paul is saying.
Right. I gotcha.
He's saying, no, use wisdom,
Right.
use prophecy, use discernment, but don't do it outside of love.
So
I don't know if
it's
that's helpful.
it's
Yeah.
deep. If you want to go deep into that, I guess exploring deeper into than just pulling those passages out, right? It's like if you want to really, really find truth, you really do have to
to
do
go
a little
deep.
bit of
You really have to study the Bible.
to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the first to say I would prefer to just read the passages. Like really
yeah.
studying the Bible, I would say that, I wouldn't gravitate to that as easily at
sure.
all. I would gravitate to where God's met me in my life and
Right.
what speaks to me. But as far as digging in and studying, whereas my husband Matt would say he loves that
He loves
stuff.
digging in.
So
Well, I think that's why we have different giftings, right?
Yeah.
Some are gifted to teach.
yeah,
And I think
yeah. Mm-hmm.
those that are gifted to dig in, those are the people then come in and say, hey, we're going to walk through this passage. Let me share with you what I'm learning and processing. Let me
Yeah.
bring you into that.
Totally.
I think it'd be helpful if we discuss in our house churches, what does it look like to tackle messy topics in love? And then I would say maybe even as a guide to all of us that are in house church right now as we approach this, like start with humility, be considerate and mindful of each other, recognize that we're here to learn and grow together, and there is not one person in the room that you're in that has it all figured out. And so if anyone feels like they've got it figured out, you are wrong. You are growing and learning,
Yeah.
and maybe a little further behind if you actually think you have it figured out. No.
It's true. If you come at it from, I may be wrong on this, even though everything inside of me says it's right. If you can really have that view, like, I could be wrong on this,
Something I might be missing here.
could be missing something.
Outdo each other in showing honor, right? That's something we were chatting
Yeah.
about. Like, what does that look like? I think it looks like recognizing there's maybe something about, there's something about you I don't know. There's something about your story that I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something that you've been through or going through that I don't know, I'm not aware of. And so if I disagree, well, I don't walk away from a conversation space and go, that person knows nothing. That
Right.
person's out of their mind. I don't start to slander them
No.
behind their back.
No.
If I'm going to outdo you in showing honor, then I'm going to be like, all right, I don't fully see where this person is coming from, but I love them. I'm going to honor them.
Yeah.
And we're going to handle this messy topic and this messy situation with as much love, grace, and truth as we can,
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, let's discuss that. this is a helpful topic. This is a necessary conversation. This is not a one and done thing.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to figure out how to approach messy church together. I should add a little caveat and say our goal is to embrace the mess, bring it in, welcome it in, love each other well, and walk towards healing and growth.
Yes.
So I think the goal is never to be like, come in the mess and stay in the mess forever.
No.
Our goal is to figure out ways that we can heal and grow. And I think you can only heal and grow well if there's room for the mess.
Right. Yeah.
And so we'll continue to have this conversation as a community and as a church. There is undoubtedly going to be instances and situations where we're going to have to figure this out amongst ourselves, where all of this stuff we're talking about has to go from head knowledge
Yeah.
to being actually lived out. And that's way more messy than just having a conversation about it. So in some ways, I'm looking forward to us actually living out
Yeah.
some of the things and theories that we're discussing. In some ways, I'm a little scared. But I think it's going to be a good journey if we actually approach it
Yeah.
together, if we're committed to one another, if we're committed to the body of Christ. I think there's actually a way forward that the world can be attracted to go, wait a second, how come these guys can disagree
Right.
but love each other so much? And that's what scripture says.
Yeah.
You'll be known by your love for one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go there.
Let's go there.
Let's take some
I love
steps
it.
forward. Let's get people to invite the kids up,
Yeah.
hear what the kids learned, love on the kids, and then take time to pray together as well. That's going to be important. I think especially after conversation like this, like don't rush through the prayer. Like take time to pray together. I even encourage each one of us to actually assess our own hearts in this moment of prayer
Right.
and go, hey, God, is there anything in me that like is off from the love, grace, truth thing?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
help me to identify that. How do I change that? And allow the Holy Spirit to speak uniquely to each one of us. I think that would be really good. Anything else you want to add?
And even on that note, challenging ourselves to be honest if it is and be like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit off in this conversation from love. And maybe even that will help. Just being open,
Wow.
right?
Like voicing that to the
Yeah,
group.
voicing
Man, that's,
it.
wow, that's huge. I like that. Thanks again, Sarah. This has been fun.
It's been really good.
Nice work.